Well, a very good afternoon from Amalree, and a very murky Amalree, just like down in the valleys. There's an element of brightness in the sky, but I don't think it'll penetrate that sunshine. We'll see. Bobo's lost much of its leaves today, so I'm getting down almost to single figures the amount of birch leaves left in Bobo, but not to worry. I don't know what date it is, so I can't actually announce that, because I don't give a toss, actually. I know it's November, and that's probably enough for me. My little chat today is going to be about the ludicrous Perth Museum. I'm not a very big fan of Perth at all. But based in Perth and Kinross Council region, we still have a say, or at least we should have. But what I'm referring to is this absolute drivel and nonsense that a new museum was created, despite no one going to the old museum, apart from primary school children. I think that's the last time I went to the Perth Museum. Maybe I did go in one day to shelter from the rain, but apart from that, I don't think I've actually been in there since primary days. And I think that would probably be the same for most people in the Perth and Kinross area. Anyway, it's a very adequate Perth Museum that we already had. It was a very antiquated building, of course, but it was still fitted for the purpose of housing antiquities. That's why they call it a museum. But apparently the City Hall, which is another load of crap, millions of pounds were then spent. Most of that come from a £700 million grant from Brussels, which has been fitted away in a lot of nonsense. And that was when that money was guaranteed, even though we left the European Union. But as I say, most people, it was spent on consultancy fees rather than any proper work. But my point of raising this is really highlights the bunch of crap that it all is. That Perth and Kinross Council, they have about 140,000 people. That's not counting asylum seekers that now live in the area. But 140,000 people live in the Perth and Kinross region. And out of those 140,000, 450 people managed to vote for the name for the new Perth Museum. Somebody suggested it should be called the Victoria Drummond Museum. I don't know how many votes that got. I think they're going to call it the Aberdeen Museum for Perth. I don't know how many votes that got. But what they certainly did get, which is absolutely unbelievable, the money that's spent on this exercise is just really is stomach curdling. But they voted to call it the new Perth Museum, the Perth Museum. So I will repeat that again. A huge exercise to try and establish through a voting system, through the 140,000 people in Perth and Kinross, of which 450 people actually bothered their arse to respond. Out of the 450 who did respond, of the majority who had no imagination, decided that the best name for the Perth Museum should be the Perth Museum. Can you see how fucking stupid that is? I mean, it's totally ludicrous. People are struggling with council tax, particularly, mainly actually, probably more than electric bills. They struggle with council tax payments, and yet the council decide that they're going to conduct this survey throughout the region and find out what they would like to call the new Perth Museum, and they come up with the name Perth Museum. It's fucking stupid. And of course, the new Perth Museum will not attract anyone. It might get some primary school children, as the museums always do, as a kind of skiving mode for the teachers, but also it is good educational stuff for the children. But the problem is, most of the artifacts are now being fucking sold off to the Japanese and Americans. There's nothing left in any of the museums in Scotland. So if the children go to the museum, they're actually going to find maybe one fossil and possibly some painting. But the chances of that painting being of any period, because obviously cancel culture, they're not going to highlight anything pre such and such date in case the children start asking questions. I didn't know that decade existed, teacher. What's this about a war? What, the World War? What's World War II? And what's Armistice Day? Please tell us. No, they don't get told any of that, do they? But my point being, the only people who are attracted to fucking museums and art galleries are people who criticise constantly the work in these galleries and museums. I'm making a very valid critical point about the publicity and the crap surrounding this, the cost involved for the council for a stupid exercise, and the fact that we even needed a new museum for a city that no one ever fucking goes to the museum. I don't even know what the Perth people do. I think they'll just tramp around the shopping centre all day, staring aimlessly and walking into charity shops. And I think that the fact is that any art gallery, as saying, is the places where people come and criticise. Art critics. Have you ever met an art critic? Somebody who criticises your fucking work. Or anyone's work. They can't see the good in anything. They can't actually say what a creative master that person is or was or whatever. But all they want to do is criticise as an art critic. I've never actually seen a job advertised in the job centre in my life for an art critic. And I've never seen an art critic advertised in any publication or newspaper. Art critic required. Please apply as ASAP. So how you label yourself an art critic and how you fund yourself, well, it's a bit questionable, isn't it? Do you get special money for being an art critic? Is there something we don't know? Who pays the bills for the art critic? Do they pay any council tax, art critics? What do they fucking do apart from criticising art? Do you get my point? Well, anyway, this new Perth Museum that's called Perth Museum, not anything else, will be opening its doors, and I think they've got about 6 fucking things inside it, so I'm not sure if it's free entry or a cost involved, but I won't be fucking going. Definitely not. I might go to the Scottish Museum, what do you call it? The Scottish National Museum in Edinburgh. I might go there and ask the curator, why did you steal all the artefacts from round about the Scotland's countryside, you know, like in villages, market towns and stuff? Like my own local town had loads of stuff stolen from it to fill the Scottish National Museum. And I think that applies to lots of churchyards and other places where they just came along and took it away to put into the Scottish National Museum. At huge cost because, as I said already, most of the stuff that should have been in the Scottish National Museum had been sold to wealthy Americans and Japanese people. So, do you understand? It's all just another fucking con.